Hello, everybody. This is Jay Patel, and I'm joined by the awesome Johnny Spencer and Brent Mail, the videographer extraordinaire. And today it is the Johnny Spencer Show. Johnny's going to show us all about Lightroom, talk about Lightroom. He's our residential Lightroom expert at Visual Wilderness, so he is going to be on top of teaching us how to use Lightroom. That includes me, since I don't really use Lightroom very much. I know enough about Lightroom to get myself in trouble, but that's about it. So, Johnny, quick intro for yourself, and then I'll switch over to Brent.
Yeah, hey guys, it's Johnny here, and as Jay said, I'm the Visual Wilderness Lightroom guru, and I just love Lightroom. It's a fun bit of software, and I'm a landscape and wilderness photographer, and yeah, love the Lightroom. Thanks, Jay.
All right. And Mr. Videographer extraordinaire himself.
Hi guys, Brent here, and I want to actually take Johnny's film footage over there and Lightroom it and just give him some more color because he's looking a little bit green in the face. So.
His color balance is off.
I know, man. I'm way off, huh? You can tell I didn't edit this in Lightroom, guys. That's it.
Yeah, and I'm looking quite brown over here, or maybe a bit red. Maybe it's the shirt. I don't know. But anyway, let's really jump in, Johnny. Show us your ninja tricks and techniques.
All right. So before I'm going to lock the screen on Johnny's screen now and let him share his screen. So I'm going to start out by asking you a question, Johnny, and then we can go from there. So if you want to do the screen share, and we will go ahead with that. So, so just a little bit of background about yourself, Johnny. How long have you been using Lightroom?
Oh, Jay, I think we've been back in Lightroom 3, and I don't know how many years that is now. It's been a while. So I've been hanging in Lightroom for a long time, and the reason I love it so much is I just find having everything in that one package and just being able to get my images in, you know, sort my images, find my keepers, get them in the develop module and process them up, and that's the other part of this creative process that we all do, the post-processing, and get it out to the web fast. And there's so many little tips and tricks in Lightroom to make your workflow so fast. I just love it. Absolutely love it.
So tell us, the viewers who have not had a chance to go through your awesome Lightroom for landscape photography course, as to what is your general workflow like? I mean, when you first, what do you start with and what do you end with?
Okay, basically, starting simple, guys. You're straight in the import module, straight to your images, wherever they are. And during that process, I like to get them backed up as well. And there's a simple way to do that on import. And you got to make sure you've got your presets set up. Presets in Lightroom just speed things up totally, you know. Get that metadata preset set up if you haven't done that already, and apply that on your import, because that's important. That's got all your information, you know, that sits in that sidecar file or embedded in your JPEG, and that's really important to get on there. And on import, once you get into the library module, this is an important part where there's one step you need to do, and I love the flags in the library module. I use the flagging, and there's a little tip there I'll show you in a minute called Auto Advance, where you can put your finger on 2 keys on your keyboard, X for reject and P for pick, and you can just scream through finding your keepers from your photo shoot. Absolutely love it. It's awesome. And then it's just straight over to the D key in the develop module, balancing that histogram, you know, fixing up any little imperfections, and then, out to the web, Jay. And that's another place the presets are great. There are some developed presets that you can set up to give yourself, and I tend to say, you know, set up a few of those if you're unsure, or you can, there's so many free ones around the web these days, develop presets, just to give you a starting point if you're unsure. But yeah, and there's some awesome little tips in the develop module that I can tell you about as well. We might get a chance to go through those. And then getting it out to the web, of course, exporting, there's another preset. And you need to set that up, and it applies your watermark automatically, and you're good to go. That's it. It's, you know, honestly, now my workflow is refined that much over the years. You know, if I've come back from a photo shoot, you know, it takes me nearly longer to import my images than what it does to get it out. So awesome.
So when you get it out to the web, that's great, but a lot of people, our viewers, are interested in selling that work, right? Fine art, images.
Yep.
So so once you finish processing the image, I'm sure you keep something other than just putting it out on the web. What is your strategy for outputting the images in Lightroom? How do you save them? What format?
Yeah, I mean, Yeah, so for me, most of my images end up either on my SmugMug account, and I'm not affiliated to SmugPlug in any way, and my high res in a TIFF format. TIFFs are great, if you're exporting your high res images, especially starting from the raw to TIFF. But yeah, for the web, I just use a JPEG, and there's there are some presets in the export menu that you can use for exporting for print.
All right, then we will not waste any more time, and we'll let you get and share your first step. I mean,
okay, let's get into it, guys.
Share, and I will ask questions as you share the tips.
Yeah,
I'm sure that non-Lightroom experts like me can learn.
Awesome. Hey Jay,
Okay.
while Johnny's about to share his screen, can I just mention something
Sure.
that I noticed when we were on our trip? So we were traveling around New Zealand with Jay and Verena, filming a few of our landscape photography courses, and we were staying in a what is it, a mobile home, Johnny, camper van, basically.
Camper van.
Yeah.
Okay, and we had no power, and we're kind of running on our laptops. We were camping one night, and we had a little bit of downtime, maybe a couple of hours, and I was trying to download my images that I'd photographed, these amazing images, and edit them in Photoshop. And Johnny, I noticed he was doing it at the same time. He was downloading the images, backing them up onto two external hard drives, tagging them or grabbing the best ones, editing them, and he had them ready for the web with his, his logo signature on the image, and everything was ready before I'd even basically gone through my images and chosen the best one. So he is really, really good at the stuff. So I'm really interested to see what he says today.
All right.
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Oh, let's get started. The first thing I find people get overwhelmed with in Lightroom is the interface, and there's a few things, guys, you can do to just make getting around the interface a lot easier. Normally, if you're on a laptop or a smaller screen, these little triangles on either side of all the bars, you can see them all here. There's one at the top, left, right of the panels.
Johnny, just an interruption. I can't see your screen share.
Oh, really? Okay.
No, sorry.
I thought it was up. I thought I shared. Sorry, guys. And let's try that again. All right. And a few technical issues here. Give me a sec, guys. Might be a second. How's that? Can you got me there?
All right. Now we can see our screen.
All right. Yeah. Lightroom. Awesome. So let's get started again, guys. So like I was saying, the interface is a great place to start. And once you clean, especially when you're learning Lightroom for the first time, turning a few things off, cleaning up the interface is very important. So one thing I always recommend, there's so many modules in this top bar. If you right-click the top bar, you can see you get this drop-down menu, and you can turn some of this stuff off. And I recommend, as you start to learn things, you can turn things back on. So I would go ahead and turn everything off except the library and develop modules, because they're the main two that you'll find that 90% of the time you're going to live in. So, and you can do that in the sidebars as well. So if I go over here to do the develop module, I can right-click here, and you can see I've got the same, on the right-hand side of my screen, I've got the same drop-down menu there, and I can turn things on and off. And cleaning up that Lightroom interface stops from being overwhelmed when you're starting to learn the program. And I got this little thing I call Lightroom burnout, and that's the first time you open the application, there is just so much going on. Turning a few things off and removing those distractions can help with definitely speeding up your workflow. So another question I get all the time too, guys, and when you have a small screen, this is to do with the interface as well, when you do have a small screen you're working on, the panels left and right, top and bottom, and the film strip at the bottom can all be hidden. So I would recommend you hide some of these panels, particularly when you're in the develop module. You don't need them open, and it gives you more screen real estate to see what you're doing. But the problem is, what happens as default, Lightroom selects auto hide and show. And what happens when you hover over, the bar pops out. And that can be fine, but you'll find 2 or 3 times of that popping out when you don't want it to. It becomes really, really annoying. So if you right-click the disclosure triangle and select manual, what will happen then is when I click the little disclosure triangle, it's going to open and close. So you might think it's not a big deal, but believe me, after it does it 2 or 3 times when you're editing an image, that's one thing that's just so annoying. So I'll just, while we're in the interface, there's one other thing you guys have to enable, and this is really, really important, guys. This one is called solo mode. So solo mode works in all the panels, in all the modules, the left and right panels. And if I'm to right-click this area in the panel, you can see down the bottom I've got it ticked solo mode. So I'm going to untick that for the demonstration. So if you're on a laptop or a smaller screen particularly, what happens is you have all these disclosure triangles, all your panels open, and you find yourself scrolling up and down looking for what you're after, and after a while that becomes really annoying, especially when you get into the tools as well. So you can see it, you know, there's such a huge long thing to scroll through there. So what I recommend you do, guys, is on this section of any part of the bar, if you right click, enable what's called solo mode. This is going to speed up your workflow crazy, and you can see what Lightroom's done there. It's basically closed all the other panels behind that I'm not using. So if I was to go into the details panel because I want to do some sharpening or some noise reduction, you can see it's closed the basic panel behind me. So that one is a killer tip for speeding things up, because you know, if you're doing a quick edit on your laptop when you're in the field, or you're just playing around with your images on a smaller screen, you know, having that extra screen real estate and being able to Lightroom to close those panels behind you just speeds things up immensely.
So
all right, J-Matt.
I have a question about this, all these tips that you went through real fast.
Yeah.
So I noticed that on your screen that you only have 2 modules turned on, library and download modules.
Yep.
So I know that Lightroom has other modules like the printing and the web and some other
print,
and that, yeah,
web,
all other stuff. I've heard from other people, including some Lightroom experts, that nobody really uses those modules except, I mean, the only modules that are used are library and download. What's your experience like?
That's totally true. You know, I'll import from this section here, you know, from the library module, do all my importing in here, and then basically I'll do all my sorting in here, in the library module, sorry, and then in the develop module, and I output from there, and that's it. That's my whole workflow. So while we're talking about modules, guys, the number 2, there's 2 keyboard shortcuts that you have to learn, and these just, they're a game changer, and one is G, and the other is D. So if I hit D, it's going to pop me over to the develop module. If I hit G, it's going to put me in the grid mode in the library module. I must use these keyboard shortcuts, I would say, you know, 100 times a day. You know, they're just so quick to pop between those 2 modules that you spend all your time in. They're killer keyboard shortcuts to remember. If you're going to remember anything, they're the first 2 to get embedded in your brain.
Awesome.
I love them too.
All right, so give us some more tips. Hopefully, some on processing or.
Okay, so let's jump over the develop module, and now the first thing. Let's grab an image. Actually, let's just find something here. These have all been edited up, which wasn't really good. I should have chosen an image that was still in RAW. But anyway, here's a nice image here from Nuggets Point Lighthouse in New Zealand. So the first thing I would do over here when I first open my image. And I'm having a bit of click issue. There we go. Okay, let's get started. So I would crank open the basic panel. This is the first thing I would do, and I just work through this basic panel. You find that you will jump around a bit, and that's okay. You know, that's okay. Actually, you know, Jay, what I'm going to do, let me go back to the develop module. Let me let me just grab a RAW file here out of my folders. So we've got, let's just grab one of these.
Don't get me wrong, I don't want you to go through the entire process, but just...
No, I just wanted to grab a fork. So here's an image of a snow monkey. Let's go into that one. Is that's still a net? Great. So let's jump in the development, Joe. I just wanted to show this, Jay, because what happens, and this is something to remember, guys, when you're working on a JPEG or a TIFF, you actually don't get these custom white balance presets. Okay, so when you're working on a RAW file, because it's already embedded in the RAW file, in the profile, you get these custom white balance presets. And I recommend this is a great place to start with white balance. If you're learning, this is an awesome place to start. You know, daylight, cloudy shade around those there, usually for your landscape images or wildlife images, great place to start. So and see what happens. So this was a cloudy day, so let's just select cloudy. Way to yellow. So we know it's to yellow. We'll go back to daylight. And there we go, a lot more neutral. And then the next thing you can do, guys, is go through and balance the histogram. You know, there are obviously going to be some blown out areas at the top here, and that's okay. It was snow conditions, so you can see. Let's talk about the histogram. Jay, you should talk about the histogram, or?
Oh yeah, if you want. Yeah. I mean, this is your show. We're just learning here.
All right, if you got any questions, guys, please hit me up. Brad, if you got any questions, man, hit me up, bro. But seriously, this is the first place I start. I'll select the white balance, and then I'll look at the histogram. You can see there is a blown out area here on the right side of the histogram here in the highlights. And something that's really cool about the histogram, if you don't know which sliders correspond to what part of the histogram to adjust it, you can see here, if I just hover over a section, I'll just turn that off. If I just hover over a section, you can see that that's telling me down there, next to the whites down here, that that white slider is going to affect that part of the histogram. Okay, so if I was to go to this side of the histogram, you can see that part of the histogram is going to affect the black slider there. And it is, as I move in, it even says it underneath. So we've got shadows in this section, and we've got highlights in this section, in the center, exposure. Obviously, the exposure affects everything, but it's mostly going to affect this part of the histogram. So if I was really going to balance this image out, you know, I could pull those highlights back. And there's a good tip, guys. If I turn on that little triangle there on the left and right, okay, and you'll see I can set a white and black point pretty easily, and this shows you where your highlights are also blown out. So if I was to reset that, you can see the red area in my image now are parts of my image that are totally blown out to white, and we don't want that normally. So we would pull that back till the red's just about gone. Somewhere there is a good white point, a good starting point. So same with the black point, guys. If we drag that to the left, you'll start to see blue come on down the bottom here, and that's pure blacks. That's the pure blacks coming in my image, and pure blacks are good for your image, aren't they, Jay? Having some pure black is excellent.
It depends on what you're trying to do, but definitely there are some pure blacks that gives depth to the image.
Yeah, good contrast in the image. So you can see we've set the white and black point there. Pretty simply. So another couple of tips in here, and this is something I turn on every time, guys, after I've done my white balance and balanced the histogram. The next thing I always do is head down to lens correction, and in the basic panel there's two things I'll always tick, and one's enable profile corrections, I beg your pardon. And what that does here, you can see there's a whole heap of default lens corrections that Lightroom has already packaged up, and they're making adjustments to the image, you know, whether it's been vignetted or there's warp from a wide-angle lens based on the type of image it was shot with. So that's something I always enable, and I always tick remove chromatic aberration. And Jay's the guru, so he's going to give you the proper definition of chromatic aberration. Go, Jay.
Chromatic aberrations are the ones, the distortions that occur between the light and the dark areas of the lens. They primarily occur because there are imperfections in the lens, and the white light from the bright area splits into multiple segments. Its color components, red, green, blue, and those don't quite converge at the same point because no matter what lens you take, it's not quite ground as perfectly as we would like. Unless, of course, it's a Hubble telescope or something optically supreme that we probably can't afford it. Anyway, so those are the chromatic aberrations. If you want to look for chromatic aberrations, zoom into 100%. And mostly for me, on the lenses, the chromatic aberrations are worst around the edges of the lens because the performance drops off fairly quickly. So you'll be able to see the chromatic aberrations at the edge. But again, you need a high contrast edge, means a really dark subject against a really bright subject to be able to see.
So like a backlit tree or something
like
that,
Jay.
Exactly.
Backlit fibers, anything that is backlit, you will be able to see that chromatic aberrations.
Cool. So that's the two ticks I always put on, and Jay's the guru. Thanks for that, Jay. And the next thing I'd look at, guys, I'd head over here to the noise reduction and sharpening. So let's have a look in the shadows here. So there is maybe just a touch of noise, not too much. So it was shot at, I think, ISO 100 or pretty low. So, you know, my basic rule of thumb in Lightroom for sharpening is whatever noise reduction you give, you add sharpening where the two values would add up to 100. So if I was to put this around 20, you know, I would sharpen no more than, say, 80. You know, 70 to 80 would be a good range to sharpen at. And it's just a standard rule of thumb. It doesn't work for every image, guys, but it's a good starting place when you're learning that, you know, if you need to use noise reduction at 20, that sharpening should be no more than, say, 70. So just let my computer catch up there. It's zooming in and out. Catch up. All right, so let's pump the sharpening up here to about 70. Now, the important thing to do here, guys, is all this area that's blurred in the background, we don't want any sharpening there. And often you'll get, if you over sharpen flat areas like that, you tend to get artifacting, and I'm sure Jay knows the exact term for that. But if I hold down, you go, Jay.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, so the perfect thing to do that, and this is so quick, guys, if you hold down the Option key on a Mac, and I believe it's, I'm not a Windows user, but I believe it's the Command key on Windows.
It's the Alt key, I think.
It's the Alt key. There you go. Thank you, Jay. Jay is our resident Windows guru, so there you go. Hold down the Option key and drag the slider to the right. Now you can see what's happening. Everything in the image that's turning black is not being affected by the sharpening. It's being masked out. And everything that is white is still being affected by the sharpening. And as I drag that to the right, you'll see less and less things are being affected by the sharpening. So what I want to do is these big flat areas at the back, I don't want to apply any sharpening to that. So about there is probably not a bad place for this image. And you can see in the foreground there where it's out of focus too, we don't need so much sharpening there. That isn't the most important part of the image. So, you know, we want to reduce it there and make sure there's none of that sharpening, artifacting happening. So let that go there, and that's where we're at the moment. So there's before and there's after, and you can see where we've come now, guys, in just a short amount of time. And it sounds like I've done a lot, but honestly, guys, you know, 10 or 15 minutes with an image, once you find your keepers, and you know, it's good to go. You know, there's a couple other things I would do to this image in particular, Jay, as a wildlife image. And one thing is, and you can see I've already done it there, is brighten up these eyes. And I won't do it with the tool, but you can see I've added a little bit of brightness in the eyes there just to make that pop. And Jay will tell you how important the eyes are with wildlife photography. So there you go, guys. That's a quick overview. Oh, actually, there's one thing I forgot, guys, and I love a little bit of vignette. And I know Mr. Mail is a big fan of the vignette too. You know, just a touch of vignette here from the effects panel. And don't forget to play around with the feather too, because that just softens the edge of the vignette. Brent is a huge fan of vignettes, aren't you, buddy?
Yeah, I am totally. And I noticed when I was actually editing an image the other day, I had to turn the vignette off in the lens correction module. So the lens correction sometimes actually, you know, does the opposite of what the natural fall off, the light fall off from the lens. I actually had to turn it off. So that was really cool to actually get in there and play with it. So, but then you add some extra vignetting afterwards, of course, especially if you're cropping the image.
Yeah, for sure, man, for sure. So, guys, the other thing, Jay, if you want me to talk about collections and how important they are, basically, guys, why collections are so important to create here, and even more important than almost your folder structure. Your folder structure is important because that's the thing you're going to take to another piece of software in the future if you ever move away from Lightroom. But collections are so important, and the reason why is, guys, you can see once you go to the develop module, folders aren't available, but collections are. Okay, so you can see I've got a collection of some images here that I've put together, and basically the easiest way to create a collection, guys, is just grab a folder. So say, let's grab the Snow Monkeys folder here, and if I drag that folder down to the collections panel, and when it turns blue, if I let that go, it's going to create an instant collection of that folder. So that's a really quick way to create collections, and yeah, and I can't stress how important collections are to your workflow. If you're not using them already, they're gold, basically. Because now once I go over here, you can see that Snow Monkey collection is now available. And if I wanted to change to another collection of images, I'm going to have to pop back to the library module and find that folder. But if I'm in the develop module going hard and I'm in the processing, you don't want to be switching back and forth if you don't have to. I can just jump straight into the collection, and you can see I've changed collections and gone back to this one. So that's a quick way to create collections, guys. And yeah. Right.
Awesome. Johnny, can I ask you a question? When it comes to collections, I noticed you had your picks and your... Does it only take the picked images across and all the rejected ones aren't there? Because I noticed a couple of them are faded out.
Yeah, no, it takes them all across when you bring them across, Brent. So all these should be available.
I think he has a filter set, right?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, so it does take them all across, man. So you can see down the bottom here on the Snow Monkeys collection in the film strip, it's got all my images available there. So I mean, there is a way to create smart filters, which that's a whole nother story.
Okay.
But yeah, cool. So there's a few tips, guys. I don't know if you wanted to go through selecting your keepers or anything like that, Jay. How much time have we got left?
No, I think we only have a little bit of time left, so I'm going to ask you for some other questions that maybe other people are wondering. Okay. One of the things I noticed about your tips is you were talking about sharpening your images. I know that Lightroom has an output preset that you can develop.
Yes, it does.
Whatever little knowledge I have, I also know that there is actually sharpening available in that output preset.
There is, and let me show you that now, mate.
So now, before you show me, let me ask you a question. Rather than showing the mechanics of it, I think what people would be more interested in knowing is, what is your workflow? Do you sharpen?
Okay, so sorry, Jay, go on.
All right. Do you sharpen the images in before you go into output them, or do you sharpen it during the output presets?
No. So I will do sharpening before. Sorry. Yeah, I'll do both. Yeah, basically, yeah, that's my workflow. I'll do both because you can see here I've just opened the output dialog box here, Jay, and this is something you would do when you could create your different presets here for exporting. And you can see here under the output sharpening, you have a few options here. So you do have matte and glossy paper, and you do have standard and high. I'm a big fan of just using standard. I find that's enough sharpening. So even when I'm resizing smaller for the web, do my first sharpening in the develop module, and then I'll use that screen standard for output, for the web, for exporting, beg your pardon. And if you're going to print, there's matte and glossy paper, there are options too. But I'm a big fan of just using the standard. I find that's enough sharpening. It gets the job done. Not a problem at all.
So your final TIFF image, I'm assuming you've saved TIFF images.
Yeah, so basically, guys, I won't output because of the way my workflow is and how my backup works. All my final images, Jay, actually live in Lightroom. So you can see here I've got my 5-star images. If I go back to grid mode here, you can see this isn't obviously all of my work, but you can see all my 5-star final images actually live in Lightroom. I find no need to output something high res unless I'm going to put it up on my smug mug, or I'm going to print it, or get a print done for someone. All my final images actually live in Lightroom. I don't have a need for putting them somewhere else.
That also implies that you don't use any external programs in your workflow other than Lightroom.
I do use Nick, so you can get to if I go over here to the develop module, you can get to you can see these are the Nick plugins here, Jay.
So when you go to Nick plugins, it will actually create a history in Lightroom as well.
That's right. So what will happen, and this happens with Photoshop too, guys, and the only time I find I need to go to Photoshop is if I've got to do any exposure blending, or I need to move some serious pixels. So there's a big branch in the screen, or I need to do some cloning or something like that. That's when my workflow will go to Photoshop. But then what happens once you take it out of Lightroom back into Photoshop? A TIFF file gets saved with your edits from Photoshop or either Nick or whatever plugin you've got installed back into Lightroom, and that TIFF file will sit in my Lightroom catalog as well, I think. Let me see here. So here's a good example, Jay. You can see these images here. So obviously I've had to play with this one, and then it's gone to an external editor, and I've obviously done I couldn't tell you exactly what I did. It's been a while since I've edited this one, but yeah, so you can see it's come back in as a sorry, this one. That's what I was going to say. You can see down here in the bottom right, just above the film strip there in the name, this one's actually gone to Photoshop for something. Oh, I remember what I did. There's a whole heap of white caps. So I took this to Photoshop just to clean up a few of the white caps. I thought it was a little bit distracting on the water. And it's come back into Lightroom with those edits from Photoshop as a TIFF. And that just basically stays in my Lightroom catalog. And how I know it's a final image, I have a 5-star rating on it. And I have a collection that's just a smart collection that basically pushes all my 5-star images together. I know that's everything that's been finalized. So that's it. Yeah, that's how I work. I mean, I just don't find, my images are all backed up onto several hard drives, so there's no need to put them anywhere else for backup. And that's about it, Jamie. That's my workflow.
All right,
I love Lightroom.
So the final tip I wanted to ask you was, you mentioned in the beginning of the program about how quick it is to back up things.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go into export here. Yeah, so every time when I import, let's export, John. Okay, let's go to the import box. Okay, so on the right-hand side here, guys, this is something I do every time. Basically, I'll import is I will. Sorry, I need to select some files for it to come up. Sorry, I don't have anything. Let's just go into master images here. Let's just file. I'll just find some images here that we can import. So you can see here, guys, under here, these are all imported, Jay, but I can't do it because these are already in my library. But in the file handling section, you can see there's make a second copy too. Right. And I'll always tick that and send another copy of the raw files to another drive, basically. So I have another drive. Yeah, yep, that's basically my workflow. So basically, I said that a lot, didn't I? So I just want to make sure. Sorry, Jay.
Does it have to be a local drive or can it be networked?
It can be either. Yeah, you just get, there's a little disclosure triangle there, and if you click on that, any drives that are mounted on the network or local, you can just send a second copy to on import, and there you go. You just know your images are just backed up right from the word get-go, which I love.
Yeah, and I distinctly remember Johnny on the seat next to me at a cafe in New Zealand with his laptop on his lap and two orange external hard drives hanging off the laptop on either side, and importing and backing up while he's actually sorting his images. It's amazing to watch.
Yeah. So I'll stop that screen share now, hey?
All right, but great tips. I mean, I love the fact that the import goes on both drives at once. I mean, that's just a big time saver.
Yeah, actually, on the road, Jay, I actually carry a lot of memory cards, and I know you think opposite to this, but I actually won't delete my memory cards on the road either. So I will have my memory cards, I'll have 2 hard drives, and when I'm traveling, one of my hard drives will go to my friend, or I'll keep it in separate bags, so I know I'm not going to lose anything while I'm on the road. I just like to have things in 3 places. It makes me feel safer.
But then I never really take it that many shots when I'm traveling. I only have a few shots. I rarely fill up. Even in New Zealand, we spent 17 days. I did not fill up any memory cards.
Very true.
So,
so anyway,
we have a different outlook on what how many images we end up taking.
Yeah, that's for sure. Well, doing video, we smash through.
That's a personal preference. I mean, I've had comments made about that a lot of times, that I don't shoot enough.
No, there's nothing wrong with being selective. I actually like that way to shoot. It's good. It makes you stop and think a lot more. So
anyway, so great tips. I think one of the things I do mention in this end of this episode is you have a Lightroom course, and I think what we'll do is when we put out this blog post, we will actually link to that Lightroom course.
Yeah,
so if anybody's
sure.
interested, go check out where, Johnny, you tell us.
Yeah, so johnyspender.com/LRE for Lightroom Essentials for landscape. Basically, the course, guys, is it's Lightroom Essentials for landscape photographers. So I've taken many Lightroom courses over the years, trying to learn this bit of software, and none of them have been tailored for landscape photography. And I just had it in my heart to tailor something for us landscape photographers. And everything you learn in this course, my whole workflow, I've just given it all away. There's 5 raw files there. You can edit different genres of landscape photography, and yeah, I know you guys are going to love it.
Cool. I think we'll put a link to the Lightroom course. So, Brent, you have something to say to that?
Yeah, I'm just sharing my screen. Yeah, I thought I would end off with this image. So, and it's another little tip that Johnny gave me right in the beginning when I was learning Lightroom from him. It's the backslash key. So you can use a backslash key to go before and then after. And guess who this is actually photographing in New Zealand? Who can guess who these 2 guys are that I'm photographing? Yes, Jay and Johnny at Cannibal Bay. Yeah. So, anyway, that just shows the before I actually did any work to this image, and the after. And then lights up. Lights up. I like that.
Yeah, that's it.
Lights up. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great thing to do when you've finished your image and you want to view it full screen and just sit back on the screen and take a look at everything before you finish. Yeah, awesome.
All right, well, we're at the end of the show. We should say goodbye, and we will have another show coming up as soon as we plan a really cool topic to talk about.
Awesome.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Everybody.